My name is Chris Harfenist, and when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was drum. At 8 years old, I was introduced to the man that was to become my mentor, my family member, my teacher, and my overall inspiration, Gary Chester. That's me playing at one of his parties in front of all of the Gary Chester family of students. And this is me now.
East side, west side, and north and south. When I get to the river, I'm cleaning it out.
Before I get into Gary's new breed method, I need to thank his daughter, my friend Katrina, for being the driving force behind carrying his legacy, carrying the new breed book, carrying his philosophy on drums and life into the future. And for getting his students together, like Tony, Gary, and Carl, my drum brothers, to make these awesome videos for you. As well as the amazing newer new breed torch carriers like Ricky and Chris, who also made killer videos, and who totally get it. One of the best aspects of the new breed to me is the melody pages. I think they're overlooked. I think they're completely essential. The systems are essential. The singing is extremely essential. And then there's these melody pages. He calls them melody pages because these can be sung, and they're sung in drums, and they're sung in dynamics, and they're sung in groove, and they all have a certain vibe to them, and you could play them against any system, and they'll feel different, and they'll sound different. And one of the coolest things about the melody pages is that they step up. So you start from like 1A, and it's basically quarters and eighth notes. And then as you progress, he starts to add more syncopation to it. So he gets you really focused on the quarters and then the ands in the beginning. And then he starts to add in the E's and the U's. And before you know it, you're doing these rhythms and these syncopations and these polyrhythms that you never thought were even possible to do. And one of my favorite melody pages, I would say anyone that loves the new breed probably loves the 4A melody pages. To me, they're just amazing because they're so syncopated, and they're basically double 16ths. 1Es and 2s, a lot of syncopation. But what's amazing about them is that how some of the phrasing extends over a few bars and over a few measures. So you'll hear melodies that actually have beginnings, middles, and ends. So they have arcs. It could be one measure that has an arc. It could be 3 measures. Or it could be some repetition, and that has its own vibe to it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sing the melody line of the first line of 4A against a metronome, so we can hear the anchor of where that quarter is, and the quarter is going to be at 50 BPMs, and that'll allow for all of the syncopation to go in and out and throughout the quarter. So here we go. And that is starkly different than if I was to count the actual notes, like 1E, 2, and E, and 4E. It's a whole different thing. Okay, so now we're going to throw some Gary into the mix right now. And this is what Gary would do. He'd say, okay, you got that quarter now and you can sing, you're amazing, Chris. Now we're going to use that quarter, we're going to use that metronome as the upbeat. And, And that's a whole different thing altogether. And that's how the systems work, and that's how this book works. It's a never-ending process of digging into that 4 and digging into the notes and digging into the rests and digging into the melodies and how they play off each other. And that's really where the education comes from this book. Okay, so again, in the spirit of Gary, and in the spirit of learning why the singing is so important, let's add one more element to it. So I'm going to sing the quarter, the bass drum's going to play the melody, and the metronome is going to stay at the upbeats. And make sure to listen to how everything flows together and works together in this little scenario that we're putting out. And so check it out. As you saw, or as you heard, my bass drum was doing the same sort of melodic dynamics and melodic flow that I was doing when I was singing it. And like, look, you know, I'm a basher and I'm a rocker. I'm sitting here with the book in my hand, trying to hold on to this quarter, trying to hold on to the metronome as the offbeat, and then trying to sing with the bass drum. Very sparse, no timekeeper, taking away the timekeeper. And, you know, that's the beauty of this book.